Hi, Carina. Welcome to the Girl Techno podcast. How are you doing?
I'm so good, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation too, because this is a different side of. Normally, I get a lot of people who are just on a different side of business. Not too many people are in a creative space. And so I think being able to have this conversation, inspiring people who are more on that creative side, design side, to give them some inspiration. So I'm really excited about today's conversation.
Thanks. I love creatives. And one of the issues in the creative space is that most of us are very creative, but we
Yeah.
never talk about how to utilize it business wise. And so, even the
Yes.
methods I'm going to talk to you guys about today, the cool thing is I am a creative. I like doing creative things. Sometimes I do like to be spontaneous and crazy, but like I have to actually plan because I'm a business owner. And
Yes.
so, scaling in different ways, I think I'm hoping to tell you guys a little bit about how I did it one way and then how I did it a second way. And
Yeah.
they're just different. So depending on where you're at, you might find one or the other story more intriguing.
Yes. Let me ask you this question before we jump into it. Do you find there's a struggle between your creativity and your business side? Because, a lot of creatives are not very much so on the business side. They just like to be creative, you know what I mean? And just want to be able to do that. And a lot of them are not so much the person that can manage the business side of things as well.
Mhm.
Do you struggle with that?
I think it's an enjoyment level
Mm,
thing because for creatives, we like to, like for me, I just enjoy creating, right?
yeah.
So much that when I'm doing the business stuff, that sometimes I just don't enjoy that as much. It's not
Yeah.
as fun to sit and look at my Google Calendar and see the number of meetings I'm in. It's not as fun to spend all my time in SEO trying to fix a listing with keywords. That's just simply never going to be as sexy as actually
Hmm.
like drawing or, making the artwork really beautiful or creating a 3D sculpture. It's just
Yeah.
simply never going to be as sexy. And so instead, we have to build in routines for ourselves to make it like an important piece. And we have to also kind of talk ourselves into that part
Yeah.
because the sexy part of that is the money, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, right, like so it's
Yeah.
like if you can equate, your brain can equate with those business activities the money piece, it becomes a little bit like, okay, I know I've got to do this. It feels less like a chore and more like exciting, but it's
Yes.
really hard to make that leap for most
Yeah.
designers or creatives.
Yeah, I know it is. So you're from Clarksville, Tennessee, originally, right?
Yes.
And I want you to share a little bit. Let's go back. I want you to share a little bit about your life and what kind of inspired you to go into the whole creative world and design world. What inspired you?
It's such a roundabout way. I will say I grew up extremely poor.
Mm,
So just to put it
yeah.
bluntly, I think that I think we were lower middle class as I was kind of growing up. I
Hmm.
have a book out called Design Profit Prosper. It's actually not my new book, but it's my most popular book. And I kind of start out by saying like just really kind of why I care about teaching creatives how to make money. And it's
Yeah.
because I didn't grow up with very much money. I think you kind of see that with entrepreneurs. Like you
Hmm.
kind of grow up not with a
Yeah.
ton of money. And sometimes people are like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, the first 8 months of my life, which I don't remember, thank goodness, my parents lived in a house and bathed in the river and had an outhouse. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
I'm not messing around when I say like there really just was no money. They were in the Ozarks at that time.
Yeah.
And then my dad went back to school, got this is early 80s, a computer programming degree. So that was brand spanking new. And because of that, was able to get a job. And we moved to Clarksville, Tennessee when I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Hmm.
And I grew up pretty regular, in my opinion, like lower middle class, but there just wasn't a lot of money. I was the oldest of 6 kids. And so my mom in particular, she's Chinese.
Hmm.
So first generation, she's actually from Malaysia.
Hmm.
And she is incredibly talented. So
Yes.
she would paint all the time growing up. And she also was in a lot of ways, and I don't know if it's exactly why this was just like kind of her personality. She was very hands off when it came to like our creativity.
Hmm.
So that was a good and a bad thing. It was a really good thing because she gave us total access to her art supplies, to her sewing machine. I broke
Yeah.
a lot of needles on that sewing machine as an 8-year-old trying to make Barbie clothes, right?
Yeah.
But because I had that freedom, I learned by doing, which I suggest to my students now, we have to learn by doing. And she still paints a lot. She's a watercolorist. My dad's actually very creative in his own way, but I think it opened the doors because, it was just a freeing experience. Like in my house, it was kind of We just kind of roamed free. I think this
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
80s though, in general, right? We got it. Like you watch Stranger Things, you see them on their bikes. I'm like, yeah, that's really the way it was,
That's how it was. We rode our bikes. We played outside.
Yeah, we played outside. It's crazy. And so, but there's just a lot of freedom in that. And my mom always encouraged creativity. She like one time signed me up for like art classes I probably would have never signed up for myself.
Yeah.
And this particular art class only had 2 students in it. We just went to someone's home, and the person every week would introduce us to a new artist. And so we learned about Van Gogh, and we learned about Monet, and we learned about Picasso. And I
Yeah.
I do think there was like a lot to that I, looking back now, probably opened up for me creatively. What I don't know if I would have, I don't know that I would have gone for it, except for I had some of that exposure.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. The exposure is important. And I think that's super important. And I noticed today that a lot of people are, well, we'll get further down in this conversation, but I know a lot of people are talking about how to see real investment, to see real money grow, you need to invest in art now. Like a lot of people are really into that. A lot of celebrities are talking about it, is what I'm saying too, by buying art, having art that you can hand down and have legacy and build wealth out of that. So a lot of people have been having that conversation, and being exposed to it early on, I think is so important to have that creative side. Because I consider myself a creative, not in a way that you are, in terms of like, I can't paint or draw, but I'm a visual creator, so I consider myself to be that. So I love to talk with other creators. So what made you decide to start this as a business? When did that take place for you? Were you working somewhere full time and doing this as a side piece, or did it just kind of like you just kind of went directly into it?
So this is so crazy, but my undergrad degree is actually in marketing with a minor in business, which seems
Okay.
crazy, but it's because I think most of us who are creative actually deny just how creative we are.
Yeah.
And really great entrepreneurs truly are great creatives. They
Mhm.
just are utilizing it in a totally different way. It's like solution building all the time. And I knew I was a good solution builder.
Mhm.
So I wanted to get into advertising. So I went and did a master's degree in design.
Yeah.
And really dug into that and just found I liked designing way better than I liked business, ironically. And then ended up working on a doctorate and thinking that I would stay in the academic space. That was actually always the plan, was just to continue to teach in the academic space. So
Mhm.
right when I finished my doctorate, I had my second child. So every time I did a degree, I had a baby. Like 2 weeks later, a baby would be born. So I had my second child after my doctorate, 10 days
Mhm.
after. And I just thought, okay, I'm going to keep teaching, which I did. I taught at the University of Minnesota and the Arts Institute as an assistant professor there. And
Mhm.
then I was doing freelance work for several clients, and that was bringing in extra cash. And I heard about this crazy little thing called digital scrapbooking. It's kind
Mm.
of the first time, this is 16 years ago. It was the
Yeah.
first time that people really trusted other people online, which seems so crazy now because we trust everyone online.
We do.
Not really, but like to buy things, like we're just like, oh,
Yeah.
we'll just buy it from Amazon, or we'll buy it
Yeah.
from, Walmart.com or
Yeah.
whatever. It's
Etsy,
crazy. We
stuff like
just
that. Yeah.
totally trust. Back then, no one did. Like no one really, it was like people still went to stores to buy all their stuff, right?
Mhm.
And so it was the first time that people started trusting a digital download in this
Mm.
one weird format, which is like a 12 by 12 paper. So you could download a 12 by 12 paper and use it a gazillion times, get it printed at Costco, do all this stuff with it.
Yeah.
And so I entered this realm thinking, gosh, this is fascinating. I don't have to physically ship a product. They can just download it and I could just make money. And it took me a little while to figure out how to do it because I was on my own website, which was like the worst possible scenario for a designer. Because when you're on your own website, you don't have audience. Like you have
Yeah.
zero audience.
Zero.
So I moved over into 11 months in, I moved into a shop that was really well known, and I started making a lot of money very, very quickly. And once I kind of figured out that formula, I was able to create for 16 years a really fantastic design career, not only with contracts. I do have contracts. I'm a fabric designer for Riley Blake. I did a huge dishware line for like Deseret Book. I own another company called Mini Lou. We did coloring books for Nordstrom. So like I like physical products and I liked all the things going on there. But about 3 years ago, we started a design program and I kind of went back to my academic roots, and I still run all those other companies.
Yeah.
But on top of it, we were just like, what could we do? Carina Gardner Inc. for the design business, we were able to get to multiple six figures pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been wonderful. I love being a designer. It's been an amazing thing. But we had so many people asking how I was doing it, because the typical designer who comes out of college makes $50,000 a year. The
Yeah.
typical contract designer makes only about 80,000 a year, high lined. Most people are still only doing about 30,000 as a freelancer, and they're
Yeah.
usually happy with that. It's totally fine. Sorry about that.
That's good.
And so, I was making $200,000 a year, and people were just
Wow.
like, "Wait, what? Like, how are you doing that?" Like, and so we basically took all of my methods and built them into a design program where we not only teach you how to, become a designer, but we teach you how to build a business as a designer. And a lot of it is, teaching people methodology. We use frameworks for how you do things. And so it's very step by step to get people where they need to go. And then, of course, you and I both know business is all about consistency.
Yeah.
Sometimes as creatives, we're not so consistent. We're like so excited about the shiny new object. And
Yeah.
so it's teaching people really how to be consistent in the right things.
That's so awesome. It seemed like your journey was like easy, because I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and they really struggle with getting clients, gaining traction, of course, getting funds to come in. And it seems like your journey wasn't that difficult. And maybe because you were already into something that you loved and what you were doing. So kind of give me more on your journey, because a lot of entrepreneurs face so many hurdles and ups and downs before they can even sign their first client. So how
Yeah.
was the journey for you?
The hurdles are different for creative, I think,
Mm,
than for other people. And I'll tell you why. You
yeah.
already know you love the thing you do. Like, it's not like I was going into a field that I was just like, I don't know if I like this. Like, I love being a designer. I like making things. I like drawing things. I like creating things. So that was the easy part. The
Hmm.
hard part, my first year was the hardest year. I think the first year is always the hardest year. And it's just because I wasn't making any money. And
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know if I can make this work. This sucks. Like, I made $300 in my first 11 months as a designer, owning my own design business. And I was just like,
Hmm.
I think I might be a sucky designer and I don't even know it. You start questioning
You really
your
do.
abilities. And found out really I just had a distribution problem. And that's
Mm,
usually the problem with designers. We have a distribution problem. We don't know how to put it in front of eyeballs. And so that part was hard. I will tell you, there are other parts of the journey that have been harder for me. Here we are doing a podcast. You wouldn't know that 10 years ago that I would rarely ever do any kind of outside anything with anyone, because I'm such an introvert. Now
yeah.
I'm the CEO of a company. And even that, it takes the wind out of me a little bit, because I'm such an introvert. And
Yeah.
people don't know that about me, because they're used to seeing me teach. They're used to seeing me on social media. They're used to
Yeah.
seeing me at shows. But truthfully, I remember there was a time period, my husband's an attorney, and he would, about 2 or 3 days before a show, so CHA is a wholesale show. I became the creative director of a scrapbooking company, so I'd have to go to these shows. Two or
Yeah.
3 days before a show, like, we would just have to like calm me down, basically, like,
Wow.
because I had so much anxiety about it. Go to the show. I'd be I'd be extroverted. I'd talk to everybody. I'd do sales. I'd do all the things I need to do. Come home, and it would take me 3 days of like just downtime to get back up again to do what I needed to do. And so I think a lot of business and entrepreneurs, they tend to be a little more extroverted than those of us in the creative field. And so they're able to get themselves out there and do podcasts and do all the things. Whereas I think for those of us in the creative field, some of us, truly, it takes a lot to
Yeah.
get us to kind of move forward in visibility.
Yeah. That's true. It does. How did you balance it all? Because you have so much, your wife, your mom, you have these flourishing business, you added on the educational piece to it. How do you balance? Was balancing hard for you in the beginning, and have you finally figured it out? Like, I think I kind of got a hang of it.
Yeah, I think I like to prioritize what is most important to me. So the thing that, like, family. So my kids were
Hmm.
most important,
Hmm.
and my career, because I had to pay back a lot of student loans. And
Yeah.
sometimes I tell people that, because they're like, "Why were you so motivated?" They think it's just the money. I'm just like, it wasn't just the money. It's because I took out so many student loans. My husband was an attorney. We had
Yeah.
5.5 degrees between the two of us. I was just like, I didn't have the choice. Like, I dug my own grave, basically. Like, we had to make money to pay back all these student loans.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if I actually ever found balance or if I even have balance now, but I will
Mhm.
say this about me. I know what's most important, and that's what I do.
Mm.
So if my kitchen is a mess, which it very often is, it stays a mess. If my office is a mess, if my house is a mess, if I have to prioritize something else over something else, I understand that and I make those choices. And I think, I run into entrepreneurs who still want their house to be perfectly beautiful
Yeah.
and everything's
Yeah.
clean and immaculate. And I tell my designers, like at any given moment, there might be stuff all over my floor and all you're seeing is this behind me. But I promise you that like it is not perfect. It's not meant to be perfect. And
Mhm.
stuff falls through the cracks. So you have to decide what is the most important to you. So I feel like I live the life I like to live. I'm grateful to live, but it certainly does not mean it is perfect.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that because I think they need to understand that it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. You know what I mean? You design your life the way seems fit for you.
Yeah.
Not trying to think of like everything has to be in its place. And I'm the type of person where I feel like everything has to be in a certain place. And I'm beginning to balance my chaos, basically.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because everything can't always be where it needs to be. And it's just been a lot for me. And I'm like, okay, I gotta let go of trying to make sure I'm on top of every little thing and understand that it's okay if some of those low level things don't get done, as long as I take care of those top priority things. And I think it's important to say that for entrepreneurs to understand it's okay for things to be a mess. But as long as there's some kind of process within your mess, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think it's like you just getting used to chaos. That's what
Yeah.
I've decided. We are just kind of used to chaos at this house. Like, I remember early on when I would do quilting shows, and
Uh-huh.
we were in a much tinier house. We moved about 3.5 years ago to this house, but we were in a much tinier house. And so, literally, my entire family for about a month was stepping over in the kitchen over pins and needles and shirts all laid out on the floor and quilts being laid everywhere and sewing machines laid out in multiple bedrooms and in the kids' bedrooms. Like everybody was walking around all the projects happening. And, I actually think, most people are like, well, creatives are chaotic. I actually love organization. I like
Hmm.
things to be organized. I get stressed out when it's a mess.
Hmm.
But I've just gotten used to the fact that in order to get something done, it's like the chaos before. It's kind of like, when you clean out a closet, it's a
Yeah.
big fat mess before it gets perfectly organized. That's
Yes.
that's what I would say business really is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's a big fat mess before it really gets organized.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. In your business, you started off doing the quilts, right? The sewing patterns.
Mhm.
When did you decide to say, "Hey, I want to bring in do something different, like the dishware, like you said, and other things that you've done"? When did you decide to bring in other types of products into your business?
So early on, I first started in digital scrapbooking and
Hmm.
scrapbooking. And there was like at that moment in time, scrapbookers and fabric designers were kind of melding. We could see like the overlap that was
Hmm.
happening. And there was some new companies coming up. So about 6 months after really getting out of like in the scrapbooking field, I got into fabric. And that was a really interesting time because there were new looks emerging, new styles emerging that previously hadn't been in quilting. Quilting was still looking really old and they were looking for a younger demographic. So the graphic design work started really changing there.
Hmm.
Um, I think those two have still been my favorite, scrapbooking and fabric. They're still the things I still do.
Yeah.
But as opportunities came up and what happened was my brand just started getting out there. So for example, the dishware lines, they happened organically because I was putting myself out there for all kinds of other things.
Hmm.
The buyer at those independent bookstores called me and said, "Hey, I just noticed you have a fabric line at this store, and I noticed that you have an entire sewing pattern collection up there. I'm wondering if you would ever do a direct line with us in-house." And I said, "Sure, I would love that." So, I think sometimes people think it just, like you're like, I wasn't even digging after those things.
Hmm.
Instead, I was just working really hard to be the best at what I was currently doing. And that got noticed. That doesn't always happen. It was very lucky in that particular circumstance. There are other things I've done. For example, Silhouette is the die cutting software that I work for.
Yeah.
I've done Michael's Corporation videos for them. I have a huge number of designs for them. They're actually one of my biggest money makers by
Michael's.
far.
Mm.
And um, they're digital, they're online. And I did seek after that contract. They were newer. And I was like, they're a new company. I can see some potential here. Most people don't have the vision to see these new companies. They just go, oh, well, I'm only going to make $1,000 a month, so I don't want to go with them. But I could see what they could be. And I was like, I think they're a $10,000 a month company if I can do them right. And they are. So I just really think that most people don't look and are willing to take a chance on newer companies. And for designers, you really should be.
I think that's important too. With your partnerships and the different things you've done, like with Nordstrom's, and how did the Nordstroms come about with the go ahead and create the children's book? How did that come about?
Yeah, this is partnership. Most people do not, especially designers and creatives, we think we have to do everything by ourselves.
Yeah.
And so then we don't do partnerships. So Mini Lou is our kids line, and we used to do only physical products. Now it's fully digital at this point, and it's stickers and kid stuff. But it was a fully physical line. And we had sales reps for it. And so we garnered relationships with really great sales reps throughout the country and even overseas. And those sales reps, we asked them, we said, hey, we are interested in Nordstrom. We're interested in museums. We're interested in toy stores. And because we put those interests and we built those relationships, they were able to get us deals that we maybe couldn't have gotten on our own, because the Nordstrom in particular, they want to do like a lot of deals with a single sales rep, right? So they want to get all of these certain deals in place. And most of the time, I think, especially in physical business, when you're a wholesaler, and we were a wholesaler, people don't realize that those relationships that you build with sales reps, with your own internal sales team, and also willing to give a cut, because that's the problem. No one wants to give a cut to a sales rep or somewhere else. It is the only way you are going to get the relationships that you like. All the people who are like, I would love to get Nordstrom. Nordstrom is not going to work with you. You are not big enough, and you are too little for them to pay attention to. So you need to work with someone who already works with Nordstrom.
Yeah, that's so awesome. You decided to move over into the education space. Well, before I ask that question, I had one more follow-up question. It just slipped my mind, but now it's back. What made you decide? I'm sorry, I'm dealing with so much. What made you decide to go to say, hey, Mini Lou, we're doing these physical products. Now we're going to transition over into digital. What was that determining factor to say, I'm going to move directly over to digital only?
It's all about money, right? At the end of the day, and you paying attention to your financial reports. And I will tell you right now, it's not like I'm like so great at looking at balance sheets and profit and loss sheets, but I am good at looking in my bank account. And so here's the bottom line. We actually were running two companies at the same time, Mini Lou and Carina Gardner Inc. No one ever asked me this question, and this is a really good question. So we started running all the numbers. And the reason we teach what we do in our program is because what we saw in these two companies. Carina Gardner Inc. had a 95% margin, all digital, all design work, great service base, right? Mini Lou, which made a lot more money gross than Carina Gardner Inc., only had a 15% margin because it's a physical products company, which I'd never run a physical products company before, so I didn't realize. So at the end of the day, even though Mini Lou made more money on the books gross, our margins and our profits were substantially lower than Carina Gardner Inc. And so when I sat down to look at both of these product lineups, I looked and I was like, it's so crazy. We are doing with Mini Lou some of the things we're doing at Carina Gardner Inc. It's making all this money digitally as well and supplementing the brand. And we're making more money from that than we are from physical products, because we lose out on every time we spend $100,000 on inventory while we're waiting for products to come from China. If we're waiting for products from China, we have to have people shipping, right? We have to have employees. There's all these things. And so 15% is actually pretty good. And I think a good physical products company is probably doing 20, maybe 25%. But once I kind of started digging into the numbers, I was like, I am doing so much work for this one company to make this much margin. And once I kind of figured that out, it just made it very clear to me, if I went all the way into Carina Gardner Inc. and then only turned Mini Lou into a digital only business, I would make more money. And that's exactly what happened. We just made a lot more money.
Was it hard to move those products, the current products? Did you say, hey, we're just going to discontinue these current products? Or was it easy to take the current products and move those into a digital space?
It was relatively easy because that's the thing I know how to do, is move them into digital space. So it was relatively easy. The hardest part was getting ourselves out of the physical piece of things.
Yeah.
But you're talking to someone who's so grateful who got out when she did. One of our main vendors was Jane.com. And I don't
Mm,
know if you've heard about
I
them, but
remember.
in November, they closed their doors. So we made a lot of money from them.
Yeah.
And, I just think the world is shifting. And so you have to be paying attention to how everything is shifting. So many people are going, we were a wholesaler, but so many people are going direct to consumer. And
Yeah.
so while I don't want to cut out toy stores and I don't want to cut out independence, there is like a weird line happening right now for those of
Yeah.
us producing product. And we're kind of all trying to navigate it because we want everybody in the loop. But it's like,
Yes.
man, if the independent stores aren't holding up, then what do we do?
Hmm. Yeah. That's true. That's interesting. That is so true in terms of like things are moving more into direct to consumer base, but we want it now. We don't want to wait for it. We don't necessarily want to go to the store and get it. We kind of
Mhm.
want it like sent directly to us. So I like that. So when you moved over into education, I want to jump into this. What was the determining factor to say, hey, this is what I think is missing in the industry for up and coming designers? So I'm going to go ahead and create that space for it.
Yeah. I think most designers or people who want to become designers think they
Hmm.
need to get a licensing contract. That means a contract with a manufacturer to actually make money. That's actually why the threshold ends up being about $80,000 because there's only so many contracts you can take in a single year. So like if I have a contract with Riley Blake and then I have a contract with like a journaling manufacturer, I'm doing the outsides of their books. And then I have a contract with scrapbooking and then I have a contract for book illustration. Those like mess with your brain. That's not batching. That's like you're
Hmm.
like designing one thing and then you have to like switch your brain power and go to do a different thing that will take you a month to design. Right. And so that's why it kind of caps out for contracts. Most of my money was made online. And once people realized that, because they kept seeing all my contracts and they were just like, oh, this is amazing. I'm seeing your products in stores. And I'm like, yeah, it's like super sexy, but like doesn't make you as much money as you think.
Yeah.
And I started wanting to kind of build education around that. Like people just didn't even realize they all were like, oh, I need this thing. And I'm like, actually, you don't, and you're not going to make as much money. Once I started sharing how much money I was making just from my online licensing, which is like through Silhouette or Shutterstock or any
Hmm.
of these different online platforms that you can make money on. And I started sharing like really how I was doing it. People were like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea that I could stay an introvert. Like I don't have to go out there and do all the things,
Yeah.
but I could design stuff as long as I can find the right marketplace for it online and start building up volume of product for it. And once we kind of started teaching people how to do it, we have a year-long program for that. We have a 6-month and a year long. But
Hmm.
once we started teaching people how to do that, it was really obvious that the method works because people just started making money. Not all of them stayed in the online space. Some of them got really good and ended up getting lots of freelance projects or big.
Hmm.
We have someone who ended up custom wallpapers, like, and she was making boatloads of money doing that. We had someone who ended up in freelance. We've had people end up in corporate. So they end up taking corporate in-house design jobs. So
Hmm.
our goal is just to teach you good design and how to run your businesses. But like, at the end of the day, you could end up in a lot of different areas. We just like teaching digital platforms because we know you can make money that way to get started.
Yeah, I feel like, which is why I was so happy to have this conversation with you because I've interviewed so many people, so many different people that like the same genre, coaches and this and that. But to be in this space, I feel like you found a niche space that was so untapped, and you just kind of came in and just like owned it, which is I love that.
It's
To
good
be
and bad.
yeah,
I will tell you that. It's good and
I'm
bad.
sure it is. I'm sure.
Let me tell you the dark side of starting something that no one else has touched
Yeah.
is there is no one in front of you to know whether you're doing it right or not.
Yes. Yes. I believe
Yeah,
that.
you are just making it up as you go. And you have no idea because we have a high ticket offer because we
Hmm.
really align ourselves with college. Like you can go to college or you can come do us.
Yeah.
We're vocational and we actually are moving towards accreditation. So like moving to an independent
Really
kind of
good.
college situation. And so it's more of a vocational school with accreditation. But we're still a couple years out from that, but we know the methods work because we just see our designers making it happen.
Yeah.
And I think because I have a doctorate in design, I went and lectured at a university last year, and I sometimes lecture at universities just to talk and see what the students are really up against. And art departments do not teach business.
Mm.
They do not teach business. They teach art. And so it's really this very sad missing little piece that artists feel completely disconnected with what actually needs to happen to create a business. And most of them they don't want to go do business school. They don't
No.
want to go and, get a business minor. In a lot of ways, it's not helpful, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing how to do the accounting is not helpful. Like you're gonna hire someone to do your bookkeeping eventually for you. Instead, it's more about like, how do I get eyeballs on my artwork? How do I build an audience? How do I utilize everybody else's audiences so I can just spend most of my time creating? And once you start identifying that, that's when you can make a really big difference in people's true artistic businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that because you're right. They don't teach business. A lot of those gym field don't teach the business side of it. They just teach you art. And being able to know that side really does help because when you look at such a great um, journey as yours, the wanting to know that business side is definitely important. What advice would you give to someone who is looking, like I said, who's an art person, looking to get into this type of business? What advice would you give them?
That your best friend is time. Most people really underestimate the amount of time it takes to create a business, an art business, a design business, a writing business, a copyright, like any kind of business, creating products, content business. Literally, you guys, the average is still 3 to 5 years. It doesn't matter what kind of business you get into. It's still 3 to 5 years of consistency and sometimes not making money.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at it in the long term that way and you really build it that way, you will stop having these weird expectations that you're just going to make money in the next 3 months because very few people do. I certainly didn't. It took me a while.
Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions is that, especially with someone, like I said, see someone with your success and they thinking that they'll come into your course and I'll be able to do this right away. Do you get students who kind of have that mindset too, where I'm ready, I need to get this right away? How do you kind of reel them in and say, hey, this takes time. It took me X amount of years to get here. I didn't just happen overnight.
Yeah, we're really transparent about that. I think right now it's a weird place in the online space because marketing, they offer these big, big offers. And we almost do the opposite. We're like, we're a design school and we're going to teach you how to run a business. You won't make money for 3 years. And
Yeah.
people are like, what? Like, how can you say that? And I'm just like, because I'm going to be honest with you about what it's really going to take. I'm like, listen, you don't have to come to our school. You can go do a 4-year degree and not start making money until after your 4-year degree. Or you can come with us and we tell you it takes 3 years. But if I'm being honest, the average student usually starts making their first sale at 12 weeks because of the way we've got everything set up. By 18 months, most of our clients hit an 18-month, like, oh my gosh, this totally works. Like it clicks, like everything clicks with the products and everything they have. So we're only a 1-year business or 1-year program because we teach you everything you need to do. And then it's like bless and release. Like you guys, like, what you need to do. You just have to consistently continue to do it. And so, I just think that time is on the side of an entrepreneur. Stop being impatient.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's going to be amazing. And honestly, the fact that most business owners, myself included, go through 5 or 6 businesses to even get to the multi-million-dollar business, right? It takes a while. You have to do several businesses. Most of our designers, this is your first business, and then they start making money. It's like, you're so lucky. My first business did not start making any kind of money,
Yeah. Because you have all that knowledge now and like you said, the systems and what it takes to scale and get to where you need to be. So that's why they're able to turn that profit within such a short amount of time. So that's what's really important. So you have a podcast and I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about, because you've done a few things. You started off, like you said, doing the sewing, and you came into the other different, diverse products that you have. You did children thing, and now you're author. So what made you decide to say, hey, you know what? I think I want to write some books. I want to add more to the stuff that I'm doing. Some books on top of that.
Because I'm crazy. It's like entrepreneurs, like, right? Like so I think I just really felt strongly, like if I provided like a very concise set of information in a book and people understood my philosophy, then they would understand better what they're missing in business. And it really became, I'm so grateful I wrote the book because we actually tomorrow are releasing our new Business for Designers class. That's part of our program. That's the other weird thing we do. We we give lifetime access and we update the classes. So like all the
Yes.
classes are moving from like 4 or 5 modules and, you know, something that would take you 4 or 5 weeks to do to 15-week coursework, because we're moving everything to semester long coursework. And everybody, if once you're in, you just get it. Like, it's just part of, like, you'll see it all updated. And I'm grateful I wrote the books because, especially in Design Profit and Prosper, I go over models. So we have something called the design process model. I literally can see your business. And if I can see that you're ticking off the 4 pieces of that and then looping back around, it is almost impossible not to be profitable as a designer. Like, we know for a fact, if you're doing this 10 times a week, you will be profitable. It's very hard not to. And so, like, once I started introducing models that, you know, most creatives are like, I just like creating, and then I put it out there and I hope people will buy it. It's like, oh, no. Like, if you like literally follow our models, like, and kind of see what you're doing, it's like some introspection on your own process to make sure it works. So that was the first book, and I came out with that last year. And it has, like, I've been surprised. I've talked to university professors who use it in their university coursework, which is insane.
Yeah.
And then we definitely use it on our students because we're trying to teach them, like, you don't really need us. You just need the frameworks. You need to know how to make money, right? And so, like, we're teaching people how to fish, not giving them fish. And then my second book just barely came out. It's called Make Art That Sells. And I had someone ask me to write this book. They just said, I don't get it. Like, what is the thing? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to write a book about it.
Yeah.
And the book is really a formula, the Make Art That Sells formula. And it's literally, we're visuals. So it's a formula. And if you can plug in all of your pieces into this formula, you should be able to make art that sells. Or you can see your holes. You can see what you're doing wrong very easily. And so it's just giving people, like, true, like, frameworks that allow them to win.
Yeah. I like that, because a lot of times, you know, people sell courses, people do all these different things and say, hey, yeah, take this, you're going to know how to do this and that. And a lot of times they don't really deliver on what they promise. And the fact that you're actually delivering in your books and your courses to say, hey, if you use this framework, because I've done it, I have X amount of years experience in it, I know what it can work, then it can work for you. I like the fact that you're actually giving a framework, that you're giving exactly what you need to build a successful, profitable business, because that's what most entrepreneurs want, a successful, profitable business.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
I mean, here's the thing I've just decided. I'm so happy to give out free information out there that anyone can use, because I think creatives are so lost. We are a lost group because we're just so excited about creating. So I'm like, if I can just get you started going, then that's going to be helpful. If you need to go back to design school, great, go back to design school. If you need to go to business school, go to business school. If you want to come into our program, we'll help you in the way we know how to help you. But at the end of the day, most of us just need more education in general. Like, we just need more education because we don't know what we're doing. And so I just want to help people in that way. And I do think the frameworks in the books, you know, at a very low price, that we don't make that much because we just publish it through Amazon. We don't make that much from it. We just literally are trying to get the information out there for people. And then I use it in my own coursework, you know, as I'm teaching my students, so they understand better. You know, they like that oral delivery of how to do it. And here's the fun thing. I actually have a freebie for your guests. So the Make Art That Sells book just came out. It's brand new. I don't know if this is being video recorded or if it's just audio. So it looks like this. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's on Amazon. This is the hardcover version.
Like it.
We have a masterclass with this that costs money. However, if you just go to makeartbook.com and you click on the masterclass, click on it and use the code MAKEART, you'll get it for free. So it will just be completely free. And it's really actually a fun class. This book was hard to write, and I'll tell you why. It is all artist based. So Design Profit and Prosper is a lot of my own experiences. I kind of write about them. This class is artists that you love and know. So every chapter, as we build the formula, goes into an artist. So the chapter about starving artists is Vincent van Gogh. The chapter about volume is Picasso, who did 50,000 works during his lifetime. Differentiation, we're talking about Monet. We are talking about Andy Warhol, Yo-Yo Kusama, who's an amazing Japanese artist who's really great with brand. And so, like, it's a fun read because you're reading a little excerpt or story about these artists and then how they relate to the formula, and then you use the formula to do it. So it's a fun masterclass. If you don't even want the book, if you just want, there's 6 lessons. I'm showing you art. We're talking about the formula. It's meant to be fun.
It sounds like it's fun. You know, I'm not even a Like I said, I have no artsy stuff in me, but because of the way you talk about it, it makes me want to do it. And I can't draw a lick. I don't have any type of that creativity in me, but because of how passionate you are about it and how you speak on it, it makes me say to myself, God, I wish I was that person. But now that people who I do know who are creatives like that, because I do know a lot of artists who are creatives, I can now let them know about you and what you have so they'll know how to build a profitable business versus just, I just want to create. I think that's important. So providing the free information, is that what also inspired you to do the podcast? Because now that's something you can give more like on a daily basis or a weekly basis.
Yeah. So the Make and Design podcast is now, oh gosh, 2.5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We're over 400 episodes. We do 12 a month. So we do 3 a week.
Mm-hmm.
And we do some interviews, but a lot of it is actually just me chatting or bringing on designers so that people can hear from other designers. I really felt like a podcast, which is really a weird place for a designer, right? Because there's no visuals, right? I was just like, why am I thinking I'm going to do a podcast? Like there's very, like if I try to go interview with other design, like they don't have podcasts because it's not useful, right?
Yeah.
But what I found is one of the biggest issues with designers is mindset, which is crazy. It's just like that in any other business. It's like
it is.
They don't feel good enough. They have imposter syndrome. They don't want to call themselves a designer because they don't feel like they're a good drawer. I mean, like you even mentioned, like, I don't feel like I draw or what.
Yeah.
I run into that a lot. Like people who are truly creative and I can teach software to can become designers. You just have to decide that you want to do it. And not for you, like you're creative in your own business and the way that you're doing it. But for people who really are like, I want to do visual things, it's like they're only stuck in their own mind and what they can do. And we like to open up all the possibilities. And so there's a lot of mindset. I also like kind of give information on what we see in the mediums happening out there. Like wallpaper has exploded in the last 2 years. 3 years ago, I wouldn't have told you to go do wallpaper. Now all of us are doing wallpaper, right? And so there are trending things that I get to explain and talk about. That's a lot. Designers don't think about that. They're not thinking, I'm going to like follow this thing because this thing might be really good. They're just thinking about what they want to do. And you have to make a shift. You don't get to just do what you want to do. You get to do like what's really working out there and what's really selling. And so if you kind of dig into that, you're more likely to succeed.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you said that, because when I thought of wallpaper when it first came back and people were really popular, I thought about my mom. My mom used to put wallpaper in our house, and I was like, it's so crazy now how I'm into wallpaper now. When I never thought it'd be something I would ever be into, never thought it would come back as strong as it did. But I'm really into wallpaper now. So it's so funny that you said that. How do you let's talk about like moving forward and like the introduction of AI. How does AI play a part within the art world? Or do you see it playing a major part within the art world going forward?
Designers are afraid of it, and they shouldn't be. I've been doing YouTube videos on it because people don't really understand how the AI works right now. Those of us that are educated enough to kind of see what's happening, I just think there's not a lot to fear at this moment. If anything, I'm desperate for it to learn a few things to help us out. Right now, it's not helping us out the way we need it to help us out. So AI is really good at pulling down and creating pixel-based images. We need, as designers, we use vector-based images. That means you can blow things up. So like if I have a logo that's going to go at a gymnastics company, this is the example I like to use because this happened, and she needed like a 10-foot by 20-foot banner. AI cannot produce that well for her because it's pixel based. So it's like a 12 by 12 and it can't blow up any bigger than that. It's not spread apart. The layers aren't separated. Eventually it might be able to do that, but right now it just doesn't. So it's very difficult, and it ends up meaning that you actually have to hire a designer to take that piece of work and clean it up and get it ready for production. So that's the part designers don't like. So I'm ready for AI to take over production ability. I want them to learn how to layer things out for us, get the colors separated out, learn how to build vector things for us, because then it would be much easier for us to do the creative part, make sure that it all works nicely, make sure production is set up correctly, and then how to sell it, right? Like all of those things are still, even with AI, it's like we're still doing all of those things. So people who are afraid of AI and it taking over the design business, I just wouldn't worry about it. On top of the fact, you and I both know, we've been watching all these people bring up AI stuff. You can tell it's AI.
Yeah.
Right? It's not there yet. It doesn't produce different enough looks. It doesn't know how to. So if anything, if you're an artist, you should be really happy. Go start making more in your style, less in this AI style, because people are going to buy it because there's only so much AI can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because AI is everywhere, it's in every industry, right? It's going to get smarter. It's going to do a lot of things. I think the most thing that scared me the most with AI was that you can clone yourself. That part right there, I was just like, I don't know if that's something that's going to be beneficial to us, because when I think about people stealing your identity, people now can
Yes.
clone themselves to look like you and actually become you. So
Your
a lot of that
voice.
stuff,
Yeah.
exactly. A lot
Yeah.
of that stuff is scary.
I haven't really delved into a lot of that piece of AI yet. I just watched someone talk about how they've been using an AI bot to like be able to answer the way they answer, which I'm
Hmm.
like, gosh, that would be amazing for business, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm pretty worn out because I'm answering everybody's questions, and man, it would be nice to have that. Um, so the answer is, of course, there's like some cons to this whole AI thing. I think that we have to just be really careful with it.
Yeah.
But I also think there are a lot of benefits. And if we can get some of our time back, especially as entrepreneurs,
Oh, yeah.
that would be a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to bring this show to an end, but what are you excited about? What's next for your business? What's next? What's exciting news you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think, well, I already touched on it a little bit, but we are probably moving to accreditation and more
Yeah.
vocational type school. It changes things quite a bit when
Hmm.
you decide, okay, we are going to be a college, or we will be an add-on to a college. That's the other
Hmm.
thing we might consider as well. I I have a I have a soft spot in my heart for these 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds all in
Yeah.
college right now. Probably because I have a 20-year-old and I have a 16-year-old and I have a little guy as well. But I have
Yeah.
these girls coming up that are super creative. And the college system is not broken, but it could be doing better. There are
Hmm.
things that it could be providing to help our students that they do not guarantee. As a professor, I do not guarantee that you will have a job when you're done with college. We don't
Yeah.
guarantee that, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a problem because now people are going to vocational schools to become an electrician or a
Hmm.
plumber, and it teaches them the actual hard skill necessary for them to have that job, right? And
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do for design. It's the same thing that you see in other industries. It's just we're trying to do that for designers as well. And as I kind of dig into it, I right now our demographic is we really serve women between 40 and 65. So encore careers.
Wow.
That's really what we serve.
Hmm.
But I would love to see us also serving this college student, like
Yeah.
those that are trying to get to next level so that they could start their careers earlier than a lot of the women that I work with now.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That's so interesting that that's the age group that you serve. A lot. That's inspiring, actually.
Yeah.
I think that is awesome. Listen, Karina, this has been a really good show. I have learned so much, and it's been refreshing just to talk about a different side of business when it comes more in the art world. And it's so funny because I said to my husband the other day, I said, I really want to get more into art, like more, like I live in New York for many years. I never visit any of the museums. I kick myself every day for not doing that. And so I want to get more into that piece and more into that type of culture. So I'm glad we really did this show, because this show has inspired me. And I thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Chantel.
Yeah, this has been really fun. Guys, listen, I am Shani. This is the Girl Take No podcast, and I will talk to you next time.